let's get into some of the wild red flags that Bri ignored that she openly admitted to ignoring.
I think him getting that tattoo set the tone.
After that weekend, we spent 3 days together. I think 2 or 3 days later, he got me tattooed on his arm. That's when I should have.
Wild.
That was like a week after they met.
I think it was 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
And I think that set the tone of love bombing, like you're the best. And that is so intoxicating, especially by someone who is as famous and on the rise as Zach Bryan. If somebody that status is saying that to you, and you're attracted to them, and you're having a good time with them, there's not one person on earth that wouldn't be like, oh, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
They'd be like, this is amazing. And
I must be the one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's exactly right. They make you feel like you're the one, that they've never said that to anyone before.
Especially when it's a celebrity. Like, my first impression would be like, oh, he probably doesn't let his guard down too often because he's a famous person. So I must be the one that's changing him or making him be that good guy.
Yeah. And emotional abusers like that are master manipulators. And they know it worked because it's worked before.
And she said he was constantly building her up, breaking her down. Like, they would get in arguments at night, and then in the morning he'd be like, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. Like, that is the definition of an emotional abuse.
And that's the cycle of abuse because you get to the point where you know you have to leave until they rope you back in again, and it just keeps happening over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I went through literal narcissistic emotional abuse for a year, and he made me believe everything was my fault. He isolated me for my whole entire life. He wouldn't let me be who I wanted to be. He made me hate everything that I loved about myself. He broke me down and then made me feel like he was all I had left. And he just kept repeatedly beating me down and beating me down.
And Dave did say, he's like, if that Raya thing hadn't happened and people hadn't have reached out to you, which obviously they were going to, would you have gone back to him? Yes, she probably would have, because that the cycle just would have kept continuing.
I was completely isolated from my family, from my friends, from work. Like, he just took me out of my life. It was awful. And I stayed because I was just like stuck, and I loved the dude. And it was, I don't know. I kind of blame myself. I'm like, why did I stay? There's no answer. I don't know why I stayed.
And it would have been so hard for the people closest to her, like Grace. I think that's why they had so many friendship issues, because Grace is probably watching this all happen, being like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But it's easy for someone on the outside to try and get you to make that decision to leave.
And what these people try to do also is isolate you from your friends, your family, people that are actually looking out for you and telling you, like, this is not right, this is not okay, so that you move further and further, which is what happened with Grace.
Dave, he hated Dave Portnoy.
Exactly. And Dave said that a bunch of times. He's like, he hated me. He hated me.
I love the Dave
Why
Portnoy.
do you think he hated him? The abusers like that hate anybody close to you that is going to
Call them out.
Yes, and take away the control that they have.
And I actually respect her for even saying, like, there's so many things. She wasn't going to sit there and expose this guy's secrets and every bad thing he did to her. But the stories that she did share were pretty insane. She clarified the whole Golden Globes incident.
So it wasn't about her saying Jacob Elordi's hot.
No. But according to Bri, he unfollowed her, unfollowed BFF. He didn't like the dress she was wearing because he didn't want the girlfriend to have this image of, showing off cleavage and all this stuff. So it sounded like he was getting to the point where he was like controlling her Instagram.
I bet it wasn't even about the dress. I bet it was maybe she didn't ask him ahead of time.
It was the fact that she was probably invited and he wasn't.
You're right. And it's something that, because he's supposed to be above her. He's supposed to be the famous one. She's not supposed to be. And she apparently was, upset the whole night, crying the whole night, dealing with it, ruined her night, ruined Grace's night. But that was his goal. That's what he wanted to do.
Everything good, anything good I did for me, he made sure to ruin it for me. He ruined my birthday. He ruined my tour. He ruined the Golden Globes. Anything Brianna did for Brianna, he had to ruin it.
This is the craziest part, is you never know what's going on behind the scenes, because while he was ripping on her for wearing that dress, unfollowing her, he posted on his Instagram story her wearing that dress being like, you're so beautiful or something. Like, what?
Yeah. And it's a complete mind fuck.
It didn't take much to show how insecure he was. And then when I heard this story, this just like set me off. So she
Last night
we let the liquor talk.
I mean, who doesn't just sing that or get that stuck in their head? You wouldn't have to be a Morgan Wallen fan and you're singing that all the time.
So in case you didn't know, Brie had that song stuck in her head one night. And he freaked the F out on her.
Yeah, she said she was making breakfast and just kind of singing the ditty under her breath.
And he was like, don't be singing another man's song in my house. I own this house.
I love the twang you put in there.
I own this house. Don't be singing Morgan Wallen. Last night we let the liquor talk.
No, not in my studio. They fought about that for like a week.
Yeah. And then he also told her she couldn't listen to Noah Kahan because she listens to Noah Kahan too much.
Who I thought was his friend.
Well, this is where we got everything straightened out about those rumors because as we know, back in the summer, there was rumors that Zach Bryan was supposed to join Noah Kahan on stage at Fenway Park, and he canceled last minute because he was too drunk to perform. Brie defended him for that, as she
defended him for everything.
As she did. And said, no, that was never the plan, blah, blah, blah. And even Noah came out and said, squashed any sort of rumors and beef because I don't know why Noah did that, but good for him. Seems like a great guy.
A good friend.
And then now we find out, yes, Zach was drunk. Brie wasn't with him at the moment, but it was either the night before or the day of. He was drunk and texted Noah that he couldn't do it.
But it'll be interesting to see what Noah and Morgan, like, again, I don't think they're going to speak on this publicly. They're not the kind of guys to do that. But it'll be so interesting to know what they think about this.
Well, as we know, like, we've interviewed several musicians and you kind of hear things in the industry sometimes about who likes who and who doesn't get along. So now
and a lot of them don't.
And now you hear that Zach Bryan is clearly so jealous of Morgan Wallen. And Morgan is probably just laughing at him.
Well, I think they said that. Didn't they say it? They were like, he's so jealous of him and his success. I mean, they're both successful.
Huge, yeah.
But yeah, it's if you are that jealous that your girlfriend can't just sing a little, like, you are such.
She should start dating Morgan Wallen.
Oh my. Bless you.
Thank you.
Yes, how hilarious would that be? I mean,
if Brie started dating Morgan Wallen.
I mean, he doesn't have the greatest track record.
also, I don't think she should be dating a musician.
You know what? I think that should be one of our next chats. Who should Brie be with next?
I think she should be single.
I also think she shouldn't.
Because I'm a single advocate.
You are, but I also don't think she should date anybody famous.
Well, and she never did. So I think she wanted maybe a taste of it.
Yeah,
and
as
anyone does.
Like, and you know what? It definitely raised her star. It does. Like, that's the thing. We wouldn't be talking about Brianna Chickenfry if she wasn't dating Zach Bryan. That's just the way it goes. That's why
I honestly didn't know her until
and that's why publicists all the time, like, there's many Hollywood romances that are not real. I know people like a lot of people don't actually know that, but it's true. It's hey, you date this person,
your movie,
people are going to talk about you. People are going to talk about your movie. So did it raise her star? For sure. So people being like, you knew what you were getting, you did it for the fame. Fine. Someone can say that. Maybe there was a little bit of that, but she obviously,
sure, and she's admitted
she truly loved him.
Yeah, and she did, like, she seemed like she gave her all to this man, like dropping everything. Yep. She changed for him. She dropped her entire life to go out with him.
I think he needs, as anyone needs therapy. It's very clear he does, and I think she does too, right? Because she needs to figure out why she stayed in that.
Yeah.
You know, I think.
And she's probably has a lot to heal from because as she said, there's so many things that she didn't want to even talk about because she just wants to let go.
And if we're hearing the stuff as bad as we're hearing,
it gets worse.
Yeah. And I was telling you this too about emotional abuse. It's like, it's very hard because physical abuse, which obviously is god awful, and I'm so happy I never went through that, but there can be a bruise, there can be scars and stuff that people can see, and emotional is hard because it's happening
under the skin.
You, and it's behind closed doors, and no one knows what you're going through, and no one knows the trauma that happens over and over and over.
And there was also the story we haven't touched on yet that she revealed about Zach. Like, she showed that Zach would smash her phone, and the whole back of her phone was all smashed. And one night on her birthday, she went into bed, I guess, comes out, all her friends are bawling, and she's like, what happened? There's video of Zach just screaming at her friends, being like, you'll never do anything, you'll never be this. And her aunt too.
Because again, getting her friends away, isolating her.
And even after that, they still continue dating.
So another takeaway that we got was Brianna always wanted a Bronco, and she wanted to buy it for herself. But no, Zach wanted to be the big man and get it for her. So again, at the beginning, you'd be like, oh, how sweet is that? Like, he wants to get it for her. And then when they broke up.
Well, I think even in the moment, she was like, I want to buy it for myself. Yeah. She had the money to buy it for herself.
Do you know what that reminds me of? Sex and the City, Kim Cattrall wanted to buy that ring for her so much.
In the movie?
And Smith was like, no, I'm going to get it for you. And she's like, no, I want to get it. But see, I think in that sense, Zach was fearful that like she was becoming independent and could do it herself. And then you lose control.
Yeah. Exactly. It's all about the control. And how proud would she have been to be able to afford that on her own? Like, that's not a cheap car. No. So he buys her the Bronco. So then, I guess when they broke up, she was like, I'll buy the car off of you, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, no, you keep the car. It's yours, whatever. But then when
Until it wasn't.
When he found out she wasn't going to sign the $12 million NDA, he's like, my people are coming to pick up the car. Get your shit out of it. Like, insane. And she was like,
do we really expect any less at this point?
And she said, I will buy the car off you. I just want the car. Like, I will give you the money. So another situation. I don't know. I don't think that's been resolved yet because according to her in the podcast, she still has the car.
Did he come out? He came out with a song or something?
He came out with new music. One of the lyrics is referencing everyone telling him to go therapy. And he's like, I don't need therapy. I just need to be left alone.
I
and even before, it'll be interesting to see what he does with his career the next year because it was announced on his Spotify a few months back that the Quit in Time tour, which was the tour he was just on, will be his last tour ever. But he's booked for Stagecoach next year. What that means, but
it'll also be interesting to see who continues to support him and who doesn't, and if this is going to hinder his career, or sometimes,
make it
press is, or what do they say? Bad press can be good press. Yeah. So maybe this will make him even bigger.
Well, it was like the Morgan Wallen thing. Like, he went through the biggest controversy using the racial slur, and his career only skyrocketed.
Yeah.
I definitely think this is a bit different when you hear about domestic abuse. Emotional abuse.
100%. But then again, like you said, we're seeing on posts, she got what she asked for and she knew what she was getting into. It sounds like a woman scorned. And it'll be interesting to see if he has an emotional breakdown too, because we have seen a lot of those happen on Twitter or X. So
hopefully he can just like stay out of it. He seems to be posting on social media as usual. It's kind of weird. Well,
business as usual.
I liked how she was joking about him posting the black screen announcing their breakup and then immediately followed it with like a truck being like, the legend lives on. Like, that is so weird. But she was like dying laughing at it. And she reposted that on her Instagram, which is kind of funny.
Because only his feelings matter. And that's, again, these narcissists like that. His feelings matter. Hers don't mean nothing. And he can discard her in a second.
Yeah. And he did. But she'll be better off. How lucky is Bree to be free from ZB and his STDs.
And we will end right there. Ladies and gentlemen.